All right, thank you so much. Bulavanaka, everyone, and thank you so much for being here tonight for the art discussion, right, on the VU exhibition. And I guess what's really great about tonight is this configuration of people have never existed before, and most likely outside of this space and time will never ever exist again. So it is historic in that sense, right? Like each of us are coming from different places, and we're all here to listen to the panel tonight. And so just really wanted to acknowledge that. And I also wanted to, before we went into the discussion, to welcome a couple of things into this space. And so tonight, I definitely want to welcome people of all genders, wherever you sit on that spectrum of gender and your relationship to where you sit. I want to welcome that. I also want to welcome the many languages that are spoken in this space tonight. English, French, Fijian, Hindi, Rotuman, and any other language that sort of rolls off your tongue with so much ease. Definitely want to welcome that into this space. I also want to welcome people that are living with disabilities, both visible and invisible. Our hope is that in the future, more and more spaces are accessible for you. And our commitment is to work towards that. I also want to take some time to maybe welcome our bodies, right? We've had a long day. We're about to go into a discussion that might be deep and different for a lot of people. So I definitely want to recognize where you're coming from, where you're at with your body right now. Our bodies carry us through this world in very beautiful and very hard ways. And so the different ways that you're experiencing your body tonight, I want to welcome that. Whether you're sitting with some form of chronic pain, whether you've tapped into some newfound strength today because of some encouragement from a friend or a family member, whether you're dancing with a new or existing tension, whatever that is, I want to welcome you into this space wholeheartedly. Tonight I also want to welcome people who identify as storytellers, those that don't, people who identify as artists, those that don't, people who identify as cultural workers, and those that don't. Welcome. Also definitely want to welcome all the different emotions that people are holding this evening. Your joy, your bliss, your frustration, your sadness, your curiosity about tonight's panel. I want to welcome that. I also definitely want to welcome those of you that have people that are supporting you to be here. Right? You could be at work, you could be at home with your family, so those that are holding down the different spaces that you're coming from in order for you to be present in this space. Welcome. I also want to welcome the different faiths that exist in this space, the different faith traditions, the different faith practices, the practices that don't belong to a tradition, the agnostics, the atheists, the seekers, and welcome all of you. Tonight we're going to have a discussion. And finally, I want to welcome our elders, right? Those of whom are in this space, those elders that are in our lives and have influenced the way we move through this world, and also our elders who have transitioned and visit us in many different ways. I welcome all of that. And of course, tonight, I want to welcome our beautiful panel. Mr. Kalio Tavola, Ariella, Simeone, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing so much of your wisdom and your reflections and your responses to the exhibition. And I also want to welcome Peter, the curator of the VU and Art exhibition. And I think a good place for us to start tonight, Peter, if that's okay with you, is if you could just give us a little bit of an intro and background into this project and what led you here.
Gosh, thank you, everybody. That was incredible. I love that welcome. I think my role tonight is just to really talk about the project as a whole before I hand it back. This project began with friendship and storytelling. It was in 1919, last year, at the end of 1919, that Atueta and I spent months on Lalavia, and he began to tell me the stories his grandmother told him, which was the basis of this exhibition. And it grew. And I think before I carry on, something that I took away from the dinner last night, Mr. Tavola hosted dinner last night, where we would be able to try and frame this discussion better. And as I was, preparing to go to sleep, I thought what I didn't do was thank Aaron and Atueta, and I told them today, was that we began this idea, and we began with the stories of Atueta. We approached Simeone, who gave us these books, and we used those texts. And then I left them on the island, and I came to Suva, and I did my work. And I left them in the dark, expecting them to paint their way towards the exhibition, and they did. And what I'm supposed to do is thank them for that. That's hard. To use stories and to use text to inspire creative work is hard, and they did it, and I wanted to thank them for their work. But the series of things, the exhibition, these conversation today, and then the storytelling is kind of my way of trying to bring culture to the gallery space. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I think today's discussion will try and illustrate that. And I'm just thankful for all the spirits and people that are part of this. I mean, I think Ariella, a friend, Mr. Tavola, and Mrs. Tavola, parents of my friends, and Simeone, who I've known now for a couple of years, and I reached out to Fenton to facilitate this conversation. He was so willing. So I think a lot of spirits have come to the table. A lot of people have come to the table. I'm very thankful for that. With those few words, I'll give it back to Fenton and we can start. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. And I guess probably a good way to start is to hear from the panelists. So maybe if you could just take a minute to tell us, who you are and what brought you to this space. And also, I think the team set up a really comfy couch for you here. If you feel like you want to get a little bit more comfortable, front and center. Beautiful. So I thought a good place to start is for you to put words to how you want to be seen in this space in this time right now. We'll have about a minute.
Bulunaka, everyone. My full name is Simeone Sebulrenre. My origin is from the northern part of the Telebu province. And I have a life from 8 to 4, but just lately I have begun developing another nicer life. This is one of it. A more intellectual, stimulating, refreshing life on culture and the arts. And in so saying, my background professionally and culturally and by tradition, without me realizing until these past events of coming as a storyteller, is I am, or in the former lives of my ancestors, we were the repositories of traditions and stories. And in the way we are categorized, we are categorized as mataki. Mata means eyes, and ki, eyes too, which metaphorically means the land is blind except us. We are the eyes, and with the eyes, the soul, and with the soul is the information and the content and the substance that makes us us. And it's the stories that we are the gatekeepers. We collect the stories, we store them, but somehow over the generations they've gone, and now they're coming back. So I am thankful. That's me. I must not digress too much because that can get the worst of me. So for tonight, Simeon Sebulrende, still budding storyteller, but I enjoy and I welcome everybody tonight.
I'm Ariella, and I was invited to participate tonight because I used to live with Aaron, 2 houses down. So this used to be our street. I'm from Nandrunga, so Mr. Tavola is a Tau because of our provincial relationship is such. He's my Turang Naita. So we all met in the same space like this at Leluvia at the first exhibition. After he introduces himself, you'll understand why I feel when I say I'm privileged to be part of this panel. It's all sense of the word. I'll stop there.
Good evening, all. I'm Kalio Patavola, Kalio for short. My wife is sitting here, Helen. We are parents of artists. We've lived for a long time with artists. They can be difficult, but they are marvelous people, I must tell you that. So I'm here because Peter invited me to do a response on the VU and exhibition. So I will be talking about that. But that is, I'm coming to this space as a respondent, I suppose. It's not a reviewer, a respondent, and I'll tell you all about my response. But Kalio, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kalio. Now, in preparation for tonight and for this, I was trying to figure out how do you focus this? Right? How do you focus a conversation? You could go on, you could talk about this for days. How do you focus that in maybe 60 minutes? We'll dance with time a little bit tonight and hopefully not go too much over. And as I was rereading your responses actually on the email, and there were so many gifts in that. Mr. Tavola, the beautiful way you laid out your thoughts was something that is so inspiring. Ariella, the options that you laid out about things that you could potentially unpack tonight, right? And what thread to specifically pull on was really incredible. And then I thought maybe to get us going tonight, we could start with you, Mr. Simeone, sorry. If we could start with you. You've been involved with this from the get-go. You've been working with Peter and to sort of bring all of this together. And I guess my question for you is, I'm holding this curiosity around, why was this so important to you to spend your time, to invest your energy into something like this?
Thank you. Why was it important to me? How much time am I given to answer? Anyway, when I first discussed with Peter at the Fiji Museum about the Wu, it was an opportunity for me to articulate the silence in the Fijian culture as far as spirituality, particularly the non-Christian spirituality. Amongst us, this is an area it is never talked about. It's considered taboo, forbidden. This is no longer open knowledge. The chiefs have shunned it. Religion has said it's dark, etc., etc. And the sad thing is that we've come to believe and accept these notions, these representations, this closeness about us. And over generations, as we've come to accept and believe them and actually uphold them, we have become lost. We have become lost because our spiritual foundation well, we use the word tumbua, it's overgrown. When something is overgrown, it's like an ancient castle that the wicked witch has cast a spell on. It's to be overgrown with thorns, etc. The work I do, though life I mentioned from 8 to 4, is around a UNESCO 2003 convention where we capture traditional knowledge, and we are in the process of capturing the last traditional knowledge from one of the ancient empires in Fiji, where I belong, also the old kingdom of Verata. And when in the process of going out to the provinces, when we ask questions about stories, they tell stories about totems, etc. But when it comes to your old gods, Tambu, huh? Tambu, we don't talk about that. It's no longer. So everywhere we go, notions about old gods, the deities, they are no longer for. Which is why when the discussion with Peter came up, I grabbed it and I embraced it, because here is an opportunity to re-articulate and bring back the respect of this ancient spirituality. And just to give you an example, the spirituality, before the coming of the first missionaries in 1835, there were many deities in all the districts, in all the chiefdoms. There were deities, they were female, they were male. There was a particular male deity. He was called with a long name, Ratu Maimbulu, Sir from Hades. So the tradition of this Ratu Maimbulu, he at every, particularly this time, the period of Sambalolo, the sea annulate between October and November, he would be visiting the earth. He was the local version of the god of harvest. So, as he visited, his oracle priest would then make it known to the tribes, particularly on this eastern side of Pelewu, Sir from Hades is now on earth. And what eventuates after that is silence, a very deep, somber, respectful silence. And with the silence is the cleaning up of the waterways, the cleaning up of the gardens, the cleaning up of the ocean, the beaches. Everything is seen to be spick and span, because this god was visiting. He disliked rubbish and pollution of any kind, including noise. If there was warfare, that had to cease to allow him to visit the harvest. And his visit would be around November, December. The visit was guided by the wax and the waning of the moon. And when the visit was over, the moon, the vula was over, the visit, the oracle priest would then make an announcement and announce that the year, the bounty has been guaranteed, the blessings has been uttered, because nothing has eventuated. Remember, in Fiji, November to April is the cyclone season. But the belief then, if the gardens, if the waterways, if the beaches are clean, there won't be a cyclone. And the year coming up later after that would be guaranteed. The bounty, the success, the good karma, the balance, the sautu would all fall in place. That is one example of spirituality which matters now. As people of this land, Mother Earth is hurting from all the forms of the hurt that we are putting out in the oceans, in the waterways, in the forest, desecration of the forest. Because this spirituality is lost, this is where I thought, and why I embraced the opportunity to come and be part of the storytelling, to bring back this sense, this articulation, this respect of the deities who were guardians and protectors of our land. And hopefully in the process of continuing these discussions, the art, that we will find ourselves and find the strength in ourselves to safeguard and protect the land. Because we talk so much about the land. The spiritual side of the land is much neglected. We mostly talk about the politics side. So that's my little take in the 15 or so minutes I'm asked. I could go on, but I'll have to give them my go. But thank you, Fenton. That, for me, is, in a nutshell, why I am here tonight. Nabale.
And then we'll come over to you, Mr. Tavola. So your response to the exhibition is quite specific, right? You share your perspectives on VU and art exhibition as a collection of activities that embody organization, systemization, and coordination, right? And in rereading your emails this afternoon, a couple things jumped out at me. You speak to the value of the usually invisible work that goes into any project, all the behind the scenes stuff that needs to happen, all the different conversations that happen in different spaces. And you also spoke to the other usual visible work that goes on to make something like this happen. And then you took all of that and you contextualized it in the before, in the present, and to some extent even in the after, right? So I would really love if you could walk us through your response to the exhibition.
Thank you, Fenton. Yes, it was a dilemma for me because when Peter asked me to write a response, he didn't give me any terms of reference. He just said response. And then I looked at, went to internet. What is a response? It's not a review. You know, we have all read art exhibits review. And there was no format anywhere. I couldn't find any format to follow. So I just made up my own format and call it a response. But what I've done is, as Fenton has said, I've discussed the response in 5 areas. The first area is basically to try to put an architecture to the project. The project is VU and art exhibition. But the project itself has got various components. It started off with research. There was an essay that was written up, and then the artists went to work to paint their pictures. There was the exhibition, and we have had some consultations following that. And the exhibition will come here as a second stage. And then, but this thing is still an organic thing. It's still developing. So it's multi-layered in terms of an architecture. So when I think about it, it's quite an exciting project because of its novelty, I suppose, and because it's coordinated, the components are coordinated, and the architecture is multi-layered. For Fiji, to me, that is quite an exciting part of this thing. So that's the first thing I discussed in my response as an architecture, but it's still developing because Peter talks about stages 2 and 3, the specifics of which have yet to be formulated, and that's exciting as well. Because it's like an open book out there, and we are putting in chapters and verses into the book to formulate parts 2 and parts 3. So to me, that is quite an exciting part of the project. The second the part of my response is basically to try to contextualize the VU and the stories about VU in our Fijian history, or Itaukei history, or our early civilization. And the first thing I did was try to demystify this concept of behind the flag, Ndakunikwila. There is a tendency with the Tauke that, as Simi has said, anything to do with the VU, that is ring-fenced out there behind the flag. It happened long before the colonial times, long before the Christians came. So when anything that comes up about the VU, that is Ndakunikwila, don't touch it, taboo. But I'm trying to mystify that, because when you look at the VU, it's all to do with our ancestors. The VU were people like you and me who lived and breathed, but only when they died they became deified, and then they were given kind of features that was godly to some extent, exaggerated, and with all the talanoa that we do, the features get exaggerated and all that, but they basically were ancestors. That is the thing I'm trying to do in part two, is to put it into that situation in that context, so that we can have a better appreciation of what VU represents and what it is, because it's nothing to be observed as taboo. They are part of our history, and we should have direct access to the stories of the VU and everything about the VU. In the paper itself, I looked at some work that has been done on epistemology and other things, basically to try to put the VU stories as more as legends rather than myths. Legends to me represent people who lived, facts. They're not myths to me. So if they are legends, then they are part of our history and early civilization. As such, we should have direct access. We should have free access to anything about the VU and the stories relating to the VU. So that was the second part of my response. The third part is basically looking at the democratization of the VU and what has gone on through the exhibition, through the talanoas. We are democratizing the story of VU. Everybody's get to know about it. And that is very, very important. We have exhibitions, we have art patrons who come to help appreciate the art. And so there is this, what I call the democratization process, which is, to me, it's an educational component of this project. Because in the project, the VU, we are indigenizing art, and that to me will lead to great appreciation of art, enrichment of art, so that to me is very important. So the VU used to be the subjects of that was taboo in those days. It's only for those who were initiated, but no more, because we have democratized the VU. So that was the third part of my paper, Fenton. The fourth part is basically responding to the democratization that has taken place, the exhibition and the support of art patrons and the talanoa that Simi provides. We are increasing the appetite for this kind of art, because before it used to be only for the initiated, the mbetes, the priest, but no more. And there is an appetite that is building up for the kind of art that we are talking about here under the VU and exhibition. To give you a couple of examples of how this appetite is evident, look at the project itself. When Peter talked about the project earlier, it was to pay homage to 6 goddesses. But at the end of the day, the project, as you can see, the pictures there, it ended up with 12 gods and goddesses. So it just increased. So to me, that is a measure of the appetite that has become apparent in dealing with the VU. As you all know, we had an opening on Lelewia Island. On the first night alone, Peter sold 75% of the paintings. I mean, that is something to be proud of, something to celebrate. And to me, that is the measure of the appetite that we have created dealing with the subject of VU that was at one time only for the initiated, no more. The fifth part, Fenton, is basically to again situate what we're doing in the context of what is happening at the national level. There are two areas here that are of concern to me. The Tokay Ministry had done a cultural mapping before. So what I'm proposing in my response is that we should work hand in hand with the ministry, that what we're doing should complement the ministry in terms of the cultural mapping. That saves a lot of energy, saves a lot of resources in the final analysis, and I think that is important, that we should work hand in hand. I think what is also important in terms of contextualizing this thing is that we have to have an inroad into the Fijian psyche. Because as I've said, the VU was a matter for the initiated. Taboo, put it behind the flag, ring fence it over there, and don't touch. But no more, because we are democratizing the VU, and it has become the property of everyone. We have to make the indigenous Fijians feel comfortable when they talk about VU. As Simi is saying, when he tells a story about the VU, oh, don't touch, too sensitive, leave it there. What I'm saying, proposing, and as the result of what we're trying to do here, we have to have free access to what the VU represents, because basically the story about the VU provides a bedrock of our own history and early civilization. And the final aspect, Fenton, is in the terms of situating it in the national context, is what is happening. For instance, we know there's a proposal now to establish, well, there's a building down there already, to convert into a national gallery for contemporary arts. And I think that is going to be the national thing. And what we are trying to do here has got to be an indelible part of that. When that contemporary art gallery opens, we want to be part of it. We want to be an indelible part of the National Gallery for Contemporary Arts. So those are the issues I thought were important when Peter asked me to make a response. It may not satisfy Peter, but he hasn't told me that, so I'm happy with what I've done, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Fenton.